I'm Devin. I am a senior at the school that Will is teaching at, and I'm a screenwriting major, and I graduate in 10 weeks.
Woo! Nicely done.
Hi guys, I'm Haley Johnson. I'm a freshman commercial dance major, but I'm switching to film next fall.
Okay.
So excited.
My name is Nina. I am a junior filmmaker. I am specializing in directing, but I also want to be a screenwriter. And I'm from Brazil, which I guess is a cool thing.
Yeah.
It is.
So yeah.
Okay.
Run away.
Cool. So, the waters of Hollywood are really changing right now, and women have a lot more opportunities than were available even last year. And so, as somebody who is going to be stepping into the treacherous waves very soon, what would you recommend as the tides are changing and more opportunities are arising?
There's opportunities that come around just because you're a woman. And some of that's tokenism, right? So it's like diversity programs that want to include you because you're a woman, or scripts they want you to write because they think a woman should be writing it. Like, there's this thing and it's about a woman, so you should write it. You may not agree with that, but you can take advantage of that, right? So I think that you want to capitalize on all those opportunities, but you don't want yourself to be limited by those definitions. There's a lot of talk about how there's some extrapolation from, so women want obviously not to be harassed and assaulted, but also to be equally represented and to be paid at parity. But then there's this weird extrapolation to, okay, so women should all band together and tell stories about women. We could tell stories about women, but do we have to? Like, why do we have to only tell stories about women? I don't really get the connection between these things. And I've often felt that people were trying to limit me by saying, like, we want you on this because it's about a woman, and we only want you on this because it's about a woman. And I've never understood that at all. Like, men write stories about all kinds of people. So I think, on the one hand, to embrace those opportunities that are now coming, as you said, and they are coming, and to be like, don't you want a woman on this? Or shouldn't you meet a woman for this? You know, I am never above being like, well, are they meeting with a woman for this? Because they should meet me if they're not. But at the same time, I never buy for 10 seconds that, like, I should be doing some woman's project or I should only work with women or whatever. Because I just think that's ludicrous. There have been traditionally certain stories that feel like they would only appeal to a female audience. And if you're dying to tell that story, more power to you. But you have to kind of be aware, if you're not dying to tell that story and someone's trying to impose that story on you, that that's very limiting, right? That's only a part of the audience. You want to tell stories that can appeal to whoever. So, is that? I think it's a great time for women in a lot of ways in the business. Part of that is financial, in the sense that, for instance, I was recently in a deal negotiation where I might in the past have said, okay, there's a discrepancy in what I want and what you want to give me, and I'm willing to play ball. But I thought, this is not a good time to play ball. This is the time for me to ask for exactly what I want, because we want to get to financial parity. So every time a woman's like, oh, but I'm such a nice person, like, I want to help you out, I screw the next woman who comes along. So we feel, I think, more empowered to be like, I'm sorry, I know you were hoping I would be nice, but I have some obligation not only to myself, but to everybody who's walking behind me to be like, no, I'm actually going to hold the line.
You're a risk taker.
Indeed.
You asked for your first job. You told him it was your birthday. You asked for what you wanted. That, I think, is a really essential skill in any part of life. Like, I think the people that rise to the top go for what they want and they ask for it.
I agree with you. And in fact, to get that first job, not the first script, but the first job, I was actually dating someone at the time who was a writer, like a bona fide writer, and I was an aspiring writer, and he said to me, you have to tell him you want a job on that staff. And I was like, he knows I want a job. And he was like, no, you have to say to him, I want a job, give me a job. And I was like, that's going to sound so dumb. He already knows that. But I did have to do that because he wasn't going to just wander in and give it to me. there's another thing that, like, I don't know if you guys have an issue with this or not, but I'll just put it out there because I do. I noticed this thing recently. So I went to this AFI luncheon that, like, honors all the films and TV shows that are, and I met this screenwriter, Liz Hannah, who wrote The Post. And she's relatively new to all this because The Post is her first produced thing, I think. And I noticed that, like, the way I deal with the men in a room who are accomplished, like directors, who may or may not be older than I am, there may be, but maybe they're not, comes, I think, from when I was an assistant. And also my first days in television, where I was often younger than men who were directors or whatever, and I was technically senior to them. But I was trying to make them feel like it was sort of okay, so I would be very deferential. I'm like, hi, Mr. So-and-so, you know, whatever. At this luncheon, I realized that this Liz Hannah was, like, going up to just anyone and being like, hi, how are you? I'm Liz. You know, and she seemed very confident. She seemed very, like, you know, it was her moment. She was taking it. And I thought, what am I doing? I've been working here a long time. I'm not any less accomplished than Liz. Why is she so confident? And I'm sort of like, oh, hi, I hope you don't mind if I talk to you. Like, you really do yourself a disservice when you do that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for me, it's partly just who I am as a person. And on the flip side, I was recently on this panel at a film festival, and an old friend of mine happened to be in the audience, and afterwards said to me, like, I enjoyed hearing you speak. Everyone else on the panel was super full of themselves. And I was like, oh. So you're not looking for that. But you do want to be, like, you have a right to take up space, and you have a right to ask your questions, and, you know, you don't want to be the person putting yourself in that sort of, you know what I mean? Especially as a woman.
Yeah. Well, and you've done a lot of work in television, and that's what I'm trying to pursue. And
good idea.
It's a very collaborative environment, the writer's room. And they're all different, but it still is a majority male-driven.
But there's a lot less sexism on the TV side.
Yeah. But how would you say the best way to approach being as an equal player as a woman in a room full of men with egos?
You know, a friend of mine, I haven't often had a lot of problems with this, but a friend of mine did have this problem where she was in this room, and it sounded hilarious, albeit horrible. She would pitch an idea, and everyone would ignore her, and then a guy next to her would seriously pitch it like 2 minutes later, and they'd be like, yeah, that's awesome! Okay, I don't know.
So how do you hold your ground in a situation like that without it seeming like you're trying to be stronger?
And, like, is the time to educate and be like, this is what you're doing? Because I feel like sometimes people don't even see it.
So you got to read the temperature of a room, first of all. Brief context of the room. Let's see. You want to speak aggressively and not be talked down in the way that you can be in a classroom by men simply by vocal dynamics, right? There are some rooms where you will be really suited to it and you'll have lots of great ideas. In those rooms, you'll succeed, regardless of your gender. There are some rooms, like me in the Alias room, I did not have lots of great ideas. I was not going to succeed. Is it because I was a woman? No, not really. Like, I just wasn't suited to it. So I actually think that's more the problem. I think in a room where you have good ideas, eventually those probably get heard, unless you're in some gross boys' room, in which case you can try to educate people. You can try a variety of things. The truth is, you'll probably just quit and go somewhere else, because that's just not going to be a good environment. Yeah. You know, and you can't really make a group of people sort of bend to your will. I think now people are much more sensitive to these issues, and if you want to bring it up, they have to hear you. But you got to be super careful, because these are people you see every day. And so the minute you become annoying, they don't want you there. Yeah. So you have to kind of find that balance.